Time is 1:26. Ms. Dunn, in the prior hour, you discussed with my Republican colleagues discussions around decisions to issue pardons and clemency and take other executive action. Again, just so the record is very clear, to your knowledge, did anyone in the White House at any point during Joe Biden's presidency ever make decisions to issue any form of clemency, or pardons in Joe Biden's name without his knowledge or authorization?
And to my knowledge, that did not happen.
Did you ever make decisions to issue pardons or clemency on behalf of Joe Biden?
I did not.
That was the president's decision, is that right?
The president made those decisions, staff made recommendations.
Great. And at any point during the Biden presidency, did anyone in the White House, to your knowledge, ever issue any other type of executive order or take executive action without President Biden's knowledge or authorization?
I mean, to my knowledge, no executive orders were issued without the president having reviewed and made a decision on them. And other executive actions as well.
Now, apart from any instances in which President Biden may have delegated authority to Vice President Harris to undergo a medical procedure,
Yes.
did anyone, to your knowledge, ever step in to carry out the duties of the presidency in Joe Biden's place because he was unable to do so?
Oh, to my knowledge, no.
In the prior hour, you also touched a bit on debate prep. Did anything about debate prep change your understanding that Joe Biden was able to execute the duties as President of the United States?
In the course of debate prep, nothing that happened raised issues for me about the president's ability to execute his duties as President of the United States.
Thank you. We'll go off the record.
We've concluded our last hour talking about debate prep. I just want to take one step back from that. When did you first understand that President Biden would run for a second term?
As I remember, after the midterms in 2022, he told, I'm sorry, let me start. What I remember is that he told his senior advisors after the midterm of 2022 that we should assume he was running unless he told us differently, and that we should start putting together a plan for the re-election campaign.
So, and again, I don't want to mischaracterize what you said, so please feel free to re-clarify, but you stated in regards to your coming back to the White House after being a federal government employee, you came back in 2022, and I think one of the reasons that you said you came back was to help prepare strategy or otherwise help the president in with the prospect of re-election. Did you not know at that point that he planned to, or were you assuming?
No, as I remember, I, like most other people in the senior ranks of that administration, assumed the president would run for re-election. He'd had an extraordinarily successful first 2 years, and clearly felt good about the job he was doing, but also that he had not finished yet.
So, in March of 2020, President Biden said something along the lines of that he saw himself as a bridge to a new generation of leaders. And I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but it was something along those lines. Do you remember that?
I'm familiar with that. Michigan, if I'm not mistaken.
Did you not see that as President Biden indicating, or then candidate Biden indicating that he intended to only serve one term?
As I remember, that was not how I interpreted it. In the course of a 2-year campaign, he said something to that effect once, as I remember. And presidents generally serve 8 years when they can get reelected.
Do you think that was the American people's perception of those comments?
You know, again, I can't really read the minds of the American people here. So,
Did you have concerns about President Biden running for election?
I thought, as I remember, I thought that he had been a very effective president who had gotten a lot of things done. And that to the extent that I would have concerns, they would be around how tough politically that reelection would be.
Did you say to other White House officials that, you know, are we sure this is a good idea? Something to that effect?
As I remember, there were conversations between the senior advisors and some of the political advisors, you know, off and on throughout 2023, you know, testing the proposition. But the president had been clear with us that we were supposed to prepare for re-election, and that is what we did.
Were you worried that he would be embarrassed?
I don't recall exactly, but certainly I didn't want him to lose.
Was there, inside of the White House, was there ever any consideration of whether President Biden would be physically capable of running for and serving a second term?
No, I don't remember there was concern around whether he physically was capable of serving a second term or running for a second term.
And to avoid compound questions, I'll just ask you that same one again about whether there were conversations within the White House of whether President Biden was mentally capable of running for and serving a second term.
No. In my observation, President Biden was serving as president every day, the most difficult job in the world, making decisions, making very tough decisions, under enormous levels of stress, and doing a very good job. And I think that we felt, that many of us felt, that answered that question.
So then there weren't conversations or discussions about whether he would be mentally capable of running for and serving a second term?
I don't remember any conversations along those lines.
Were you aware of any staffers that were concerned about President Biden's mental ability to run for or serve a second term?
I was not aware of staffers feeling that way.
Okay, we'll go back to the debate now. So we finished up talking about debate prep at Camp David. On debate night, did you attend the debate?
I did not attend the debate.
Where did you watch the debate?
I did watch the debate from my home,
From your home on television?
actually on my computer with dial groups.
Could you explain, just for the record, what a dial group is?
As dial groups are groups of voters who are brought in to watch speeches, debates, other things, and they're instructed to turn the dial to the right if they feel positive, to the left if they feel more negative, and it allows you to track in real time sort of emotions and what is working, what's not working.
Did you watch it alone or with
No,
someone?
I was with my family.
President Biden did not perform well in that debate. Would you agree with that?
I was watching it on the dial groups, and I've said, and I believe, he didn't have a great night, he had a bad night, that the beginning of the debate was weaker than the end of the debate. But I have to say, as someone who was watching it on the dial groups, neither candidate did particularly well.
You said it was a bad night. So what about it made it a bad night?
The beginning of the debate, thought his voice sounded soft. I thought, his answers weren't particularly sharp or good. Clearly, I think people know what made that a bad night, so.
Had you seen that version of President Biden, what you're describing, his answers looked like and the way he sounded, had you seen that during debate prep?
We had not seen it during debate prep, and I was surprised to see it on the debate stage.
Had you ever seen President Biden like that in any other instance?
I cannot remember another instance where he was like the beginning, the first 10 to 15 minutes of that debate.
It seemed that President Biden would freeze up or lose his train of thought during some of his answers during the debate. Is that fair?
No, the president didn't have a good debate. His answers weren't sharp. They sounded wandering, especially at the beginning. I think that he didn't do what he'd set out to accomplish in terms of reassuring the American people about his ability to serve the next 4 years. And, so whatever specific you want to raise, I think I will generally say that the beginning of that debate was very harmful politically to his candidacy.
So you said it didn't do a good job of reassuring the American people that he was fit to serve another 4 years.
Yeah.
So reassuring, so do you believe the American people were concerned that he was unfit to serve for 4 more years?
No, as I think I've said before, we had seen that age and his age was really the primary issue for so many voters about whether or not they were going to vote for him for re-election. Part of what we wanted to do with that debate was to show them a Joe Biden who was gearing to go for the next 4 years.
So, and forgive me, but we keep coming back to this sort of point here, but the debate, doing it the way it was done, to dispel concerns of President Biden's age, the debate, nothing about it would make him actually younger, of course. So what about it, how would it have dispelled concerns about President Biden's age?
As I think I said earlier, we had seen that the best way to address concerns around age was for people to see Joe Biden, to see him out there, to see him making the State of the Union speech, going back and forth with members who were heckling him, to see him on the campaign trail. So again, it was people hearing for themselves as opposed to what was coming on their social media networks.
So did you think it would be beneficial politically for President Biden to demonstrate that he was energetic?
We thought it would be beneficial for the American people to get to see Joe Biden directly without any filter. That is why we recommended the debate, along with wanting to make it, to define the race more as a two-person race.
And this was, again, to help dispel or alleviate concerns about President Biden's age.
This was to reassure people and to communicate to people, as I remember, that, his age wasn't going to keep him from being a great president in the second term.
What about someone's age would make them unable to serve a second term?
Well, I don't think there was at least as I remember, there was nothing about his age or his physical shape that would have made him unable to serve a second term. He'd had clean bills of health. His doctor had written he was fit to be president, to serve as president. Those of us who had regular interactions with him saw him as someone who was doing the role of president and continuing to do so. So there are people who have concerns just about age in general in this society. We felt hearing from Joe Biden would help to set those minds at ease.